You know, usually when we talk about hiring a new employee, there's uh, this sort of baked-in expectation of learning curve.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
you bring someone on, you give them a few weeks to, find the coffee machine or figure out the intranet.
Right. You fully expect them to mess up a little.
Exactly. You expect a handful of mistakes along the way. It's basically just built into the operating budget.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the cost of human adaptation, right?
Right.
We absorb those inefficiencies because eventually that human learns the nuances of the business.
Right. But if you step into the world of enterprise artificial intelligence right now, that grace period completely evaporates.
It is entirely gone.
Yeah, because we aren't talking about onboarding a single eager intern who might, accidentally send an email to the wrong department. We're talking about deploying a massive digital workforce, thousands of autonomous AI agents operating simultaneously at just lightning speed.
Executing critical real-time operations.
Exactly. And in that landscape, the margin for a learning curve isn't small. It's mathematically zero.
Because a single hallucination or a logic flaw from one agent, it doesn't just sit harmlessly in an outbox somewhere.
Yeah.
In a fully interconnected digital architecture, a misstep at phase one gets instantly processed, adopted, and multiplied by the agents handling phases 2, 3, and 4.
And that compounds so fast. So we're diving straight into a really fascinating stack of notes today from EON AI Ventures. They just released the architecture for something they're calling Module 6, from VibeFlow to Agentic Programming.
It's a heavy title, but it's vital stuff.
It really is. And our core mission for this deep dive is to decode how massive enterprises are desperately trying to survive this specific transition. Because we are rapidly moving out of the phase where, a human worker just uses a single AI chatbot as a little assistant. We are officially entering the agentic era.
Right, where massive networks of AIs manage intricate workflows completely on their own. And this shift, it isn't just about getting faster or more efficient. It's really a structural response to a very real crisis.
The demographic squeeze, right?
Yeah, exactly. AI capabilities have suddenly leaped ahead of the human workforce's ability to safely manage them.
Yeah, and the numbers driving this are honestly terrifying if you're an operations executive. The source material highlights this massive demographic shift. They point out that 50% of the current workforce is set to retire in the next 5 to 7 years.
Which is just staggering. That's half of the institutional knowledge. Half of the experienced hands on the steering wheel just walking out the door in a remarkably compressed time frame.
And the knee-jerk reaction from most corporate boards is just to say, well, we'll just buy more AI licenses to cover the gap.
Which does not work.
No, the data EON provides shows that traditional AI system scalability in these enterprise environments is currently sitting at less than 20%.
Yeah, you cannot just drop a generic large language model into a retiring VP's chair and tell it to run global logistics.
Right, and EON AI Ventures has a very specific philosophy on why that fails. They point out that generic AI tools natively deliver about 80% quality.
Which, I mean, is great for certain things.
Oh yeah, if you're drafting a marketing email or brainstorming some code snippets, 80% is phenomenal. You just fix the last 20% yourself.
Right.
But high-stakes enterprise environments demand a 99% success rate to achieve what they call agentic readiness.
And closing that 20% delta is arguably the hardest problem in tech right now.
Why is that final stretch so impossible?
Well, think about a standard enterprise process. Let's say processing an insurance claim.
Okay, sure.
That process might have 10 distinct steps. If a generic AI has an 80% success rate at each individual step, you don't get an 80% accurate final claim at the end.
Because the errors compound.
Exactly. They multiply probabilistically. By step 10, your overall accuracy might be closer to 10%.
Wait, really? Just 10%?
Yeah, it degrades incredibly fast.
Which means 90% of your automated enterprise decisions are actively creating massive liabilities. So let me test an analogy here. Is that final 20% gap basically like the difference between building one custom high-performance sports car in your home garage versus trying to mass produce that exact same car on a fully automated assembly line without losing any of that custom perfection?
That maps perfectly, actually. Building that one car in your garage is what EON calls the VibeFlow 3.0 model.
Okay.
In that model, you are the single worker. You are the director. You prompt the AI, you read its output, you correct it, you guide it step by step, you oversee literally every bolt.
And that works beautifully for one human managing one bot.
Exactly. But if you push that 80% model onto a high-speed assembly line, without you standing there to catch the mistakes.
You're basically just mass-producing incredibly confident million-dollar errors at scale.
Exactly. And that severe gap, a shrinking workforce, generic AI trapped at 80% reliability, and the non-negotiable 99% requirement of industries like finance or healthcare, that's the catalyst for this entire release.
Right. A human manually directing an AI assistant simply cannot carry the operational weight of a 50% workforce reduction.
It just doesn't scale. So the workflow has to evolve. EON AI Ventures argues we have to move beyond level 3 of the VibeFlow Pyramid, which is that single-user architecture.
And transition into VibeFlow 4.
Right. Dan Ledruskar, the chairman of EON AI Ventures, he frames this with a rather striking architectural metaphor.
Yeah.
He notes that in this new system, there is no fourth floor, just intelligent, measurable growth.
No fourth floor, meaning what exactly?
Well, he means you don't just build a bigger room for more humans to sit in and manage bots. You transition the fundamental nature of the work from being director-managed to showrunner-led.
I love that distinction, director to showrunner, because, if I'm directing an indie film, I am managing the immediate scene right in front of me. I tell the actor, or, the AI, stand here, say this, adjust your tone. I'm micromanaging the immediate output.
Right.
But a showrunner on a television network isn't holding the camera. They are overseeing multiple episodes, multiple directors, the writing room, the editing bay, all simultaneously.
A showrunner manages the system that produces the output, rather than producing the output themselves.
Right.
But if you're suddenly acting as the human showrunner for a network of autonomous AI agents, you hit an immediate architectural problem.
Which is it?
How do you stop the system from devolving into chaos? You can't just spin up 50 agents and tell them, hey, go figure out this supply chain issue.
Oh, man, they'd trip all over each other. They'd overwrite the exact same databases. It would just be a computational traffic jam.
Exactly. So to prevent that, VibeFlow 4 requires an enterprise to strictly separate the planning phase from the execution phase.
Okay.
EON refers to this as separating the brain from the hands.
The brain and the hands.
Right. Under high-load scenarios, you cannot have the same agent deciding what to do and simultaneously trying to do it.
Because if the bot gets confused while executing a task, its planning logic starts to degrade, and it starts hallucinating wild solutions.
Yes, precisely. So EON AI Ventures introduces 3 specific structural roles into the workflow to essentially build guardrails around these agents. And to be clear, these aren't job titles for humans.
Right. These are structural roles for the bots themselves.
Let's break down the mechanics of how this multi-agent orchestration actually works. The first foundational role they establish is the dispatcher.
The ultimate traffic controller.
Exactly. When you have parallel workers, let's say 20 hand agents ready to execute tasks, the dispatcher centralizes all the incoming requests into a single, unified queue.
So it organizes the chaos right at the door.
Right. The dispatcher acts as the strict division between the brain and the hands. A human, or maybe a high-level planning agent, submits a complex goal. The dispatcher breaks it down, assigns specific, narrow parameters to individual worker agents, and ensures no 2 bots are trying to access or manipulate the same data at the same time.
Wow, so it's a highly sophisticated load balancer that maintains absolute clarity.
They make sure the assembly line keeps moving.
But, what happens when one of those worker agents inevitably produces a flawed piece of work? Because even with the dispatcher, we're still dealing with probabilistic models, right? They make stuff up.
They absolutely do. And that introduces the second and arguably most critical role, which is the reviewer.
The gatekeeper.
Every single output generated by an executing agent must pass through the reviewer before it is integrated into the broader enterprise system.
So it's not just checking for typos.
Oh, no.
Go.
It evaluates the output against strict predefined acceptance tests to validate the quality. And most importantly, the reviewer serves to protect what EON calls the vault.
And the vault being what? The enterprise's core databases, proprietary code, critical financial ledgers.
Right. Think of it from your perspective as a consumer. Let's say you request a complex refund through a company's automated system.
Okay.
A worker agent might misinterpret the policy and accidentally draft an approval that authorizes a refund for 10 times the correct amount.
Oh, boy.
Without a reviewer, that action hits the vault, the money moves, and the error just compounds instantly.
But with VibeFlow 4?
The reviewer agent intercepts the draft, cross-references it against the strict parameters of the company ledger and the refund policy, flags the hallucination, and just kicks it right back to the worker queue.
The mistake dies at the reviewer's desk.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have traffic control to organize the bots. and a ruthless quality assurance gate to stop the errors. That solves the internal workflow. But the third role they introduce is what truly marks the shift into the agentic era. They call it the front desk.
Yes. The front desk is built entirely around what EON calls a dual consumer design. And honestly, this requires a massive shift in how we think about software engineering.
How so?
Well, historically, if a system generated a report or processed data, the ultimate consumer of that data was a human being. The user interface was designed for eyeballs. It had buttons, readable text, charts.
Right, a dashboard.
But the front desk implies that humans are no longer the primary consumers of an enterprise's output. We are literally building UI for bots.
That is wild. Building UI for bots. Let's put a 30-second hypothetical on this to make it concrete.
Sure.
Let's say I'm a massive shipping company. My internal logistics workflow is fully automated with dispatchers and reviewers, but I need to negotiate a bulk rate with a separate railroad company whose systems are also fully automated.
Okay. In the old world, your logistics system would generate an email or a dashboard alert, a human would read it, and then pick up the phone to call the railroad's human rep.
But under VibeFlow 4,
Your internal logistics AI simply approaches the railroad company's front desk.
wow.
This front desk is a managed entry point. It's essentially an extremely advanced API designed specifically for external AI agents to interact with the internal system.
So they just negotiate the freight capacity, securely verify credentials, and execute the contract bot to bot instantly.
Instantly. The front desk ensures that when outside agents come knocking, they are met with strict compatibility, security, and operational rigor.
It's basically a receptionist that speaks fluent, highly structured robot.
That's a great way to put it. And when an enterprise successfully implements these three roles, dispatcher, reviewer, front desk, they have essentially cured that 80% generic limit.
They've built a system that actively polices itself to reach that 99% precision.
Exactly. They finally have a mature VibeFlow 4 environment.
But the real return on investment here, the reason companies are pouring billions into this architecture, it isn't just about building one perfect workflow for one single department.
Right, because that's too slow.
The exponential value unlocks when you can instantly duplicate that success across an entire multinational corporation. Which brings us to the third major pillar of this release, forkable recipe libraries.
Right. Taking the concept of forking directly from software engineering. When you fork a code repository, you copy the entire structure to start a new, independent project without affecting the original.
So EON applies this to massive operational workflows.
They do. So if that logistics department spends 6 months perfectly tuning their dispatcher, reviewer, and front desk to handle complex global shipping without a single error.
The finance department doesn't have to start from zero.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They fork the recipe. They literally copy the entire architectural schema. They take the specific structural prompts, the rigorous acceptance tests the reviewer uses, the data flow schemas, the tool integrations, and they just clone them.
You take a bespoke, battle-tested system and turn it into a replicable enterprise template.
Yes.
Okay, but I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure, go for it.
If we're just cloning these recipes into totally different departments in the name of efficiency, are we risking something incredibly dangerous?
In what way?
Well, workflows naturally develop blind spots, right?
Right.
Or they rely on assumptions specific to their specific environment. If I take a highly efficient logistics workflow and just paste it over a human resources department, isn't that like trying to use a master baker's recipe to make a stir fry just because both happen in a kitchen?
That is a very fair point.
Because it seems like you're just going to mass produce an absolute disaster.
And you're right. That is the single greatest vulnerability of enterprise orchestration. You can very easily build an automated engine that flawlessly executes the wrong logic at the speed of light.
Right.
But EON AI Ventures is intensely aware of this risk.
Right.
Which is why they don't just hand an enterprise the cloning mechanism and walk away.
Yeah.
To prevent the stir-fry disaster, you have to definitively prove your workflow is mature enough to actually be scaled.
Okay, how do you prove it?
They enforce this through what they call the 3-trigger test.
All right, let's unpack that, because a test is only as good as the mechanics behind it. What actually triggers the transition?
So the test provides an objective operational measure to identify when a department has genuinely outgrown its level 3 human director capabilities and actually needs full VibeFlow 4 orchestration.
Because you shouldn't just upgrade for the sake of upgrading.
Right. While the source nodes don't list the proprietary code, the operational triggers function around 3 core thresholds: process complexity, human bottlenecking, and vault risk.
Okay, so trigger one would be complexity. Let me guess. If a task now requires so many sub-agents fetching external APIs that a single human prompt can no longer manage the context window, you hit a trigger.
Exactly, you've hit the complexity ceiling. Then, trigger 2 evaluates the load. Is the human director now the slowest part of the process?
Oh, like if the AI agents are just waiting idle in a queue because the human can't review the outputs fast enough.
Right, you have a bottleneck that requires an automated dispatcher.
Makes sense. And trigger three.
Trigger 3 focuses on the vault. If the workflow begins manipulating high-risk data like automatically adjusting core financial ledgers, the risk tolerance demands the implementation of a structural reviewer.
Don't get to fork and clone the system unless you objectively hit these triggers.
It enforces discipline. It absolutely prevents an executive from forcing a complex, multi-agent architecture onto a simple problem just because it's the new shiny toy.
And learning to apply this discipline isn't just theoretical. The EON curriculum uses 6 highly specific worked examples to train learners on when and how to scale.
Yes.
And they deploy an arsenal of advanced diagnostic and implementation tools to do it. The source material highlights 3 specific platforms: Radar, Genesis 3, and Venture Builder.
Right, these tools form the operational suite. Think of Genesis 3 as the highly structured environment where the specific agents and rules are initially forged and tested.
Like a sandbox.
Exactly. Then, Radar operates as the real-time diagnostic engine. It monitors the agent interactions, tracking the pathways to ensure the dispatcher and reviewer are functioning without latency or, logic loops.
And Venture Builder acts as the overarching framework to take those tuned agents and actually structure them into a viable, deployable enterprise solution that integrates with the company's legacy systems.
But you don't just flip a switch and go live either.
Right.
EON employs a 3-stage backdoor rollout.
The backdoor rollout, yeah, that is crucial for safety. Stage 1 is purely shadowing, right?
Yes. The agentic system runs in parallel to the human workers, consuming the exact same data, making decisions.
Yeah.
But those decisions are entirely siloed.
They never touch the real world.
Never. They are just compared against the human choices over time to measure accuracy.
And then, once it hits that 99% mark in the shadow phase, stage 2 is the proposal phase. The system generates the actions and presents them to a human for one-click approval.
And only when the confidence is absolute and the data proves it, do you move to stage 3, which is full autonomous integration through the front desk.
If you zoom out and look at the company behind this architecture, this rigorous, almost paranoid focus on structured learning and slow rollout, it makes perfect sense.
It really does. EON AI Ventures isn't some fly-by-night startup that pivoted to AI 6 months ago just because it became trendy.
No, their leadership foundation comes directly from EON Reality, which has 25 years of deep experience in immersive learning and extended reality solutions.
It's a massive detail. They've spent a quarter of a century figuring out how to capture complex human expertise, digitize it, and scale that knowledge transfer for massive global institutions.
They already operate platforms like the Enterprise AI Platform for Operational Intelligence and Virtual Campus for scalable training and certification.
They've basically built their legacy on the fundamental understanding that generic, unstructured learning platforms completely fail in environments where precision matters.
Right. If you are training a surgeon or an aerospace engineer, close enough it's catastrophic.
Exactly. And they have taken that exact same philosophy regarding human learning and mapped it directly onto machine orchestration. They know precisely how to build the guardrails required to cross that terrifying gap from 80% to 100% reliability.
Because when half your operational workforce is taking their retirement packages and you are literally relying on synthetic agents to keep the lights on and the supply chains moving, you cannot afford a hallucination.
The stakes are truly existential for these companies.
They are. So let's distill all of this down. What are the vital takeaways from everything we've explored in this Module 6 release? First, the demographic reality is unavoidable and immediate. The human workforce is shrinking at the exact historical moment AI technology is accelerating.
Right.
To survive this squeeze, enterprises must abandon the VibeFlow 3.0 model of single-user AI, because that model limits them to the 80% generic quality threshold, which is fundamentally incompatible with high-stakes operations.
Exactly. They have to adopt disciplined, multi-agent orchestration to achieve 99% precision. And EON's VibeFlow 4 provides the specific structural blueprint to do that.
You stop acting like an indie director managing one bot, and you become a showrunner overseeing an entire system.
You separate the brain from the HAMODs You establish the dispatcher to manage the traffic and prevent collisions.
You build the reviewer to ruthlessly protect the vault and kill those compounding errors before they spread.
And you construct a front desk to allow AI agents to securely interact with external bots.
And once that rigorous ecosystem is perfected, you use the three-trigger test to objectively verify maturity. Only then do you utilize forkable recipe libraries to rapidly clone that success across the enterprise.
It's a complete paradigm shift.
It really is. Now, if you're listening to this and thinking, well, this is fascinating, but I don't run a multinational enterprise, so why does the agentic era matter to me? Here's the reality. Your daily life is about to be heavily, intimately impacted by this shift.
Oh, without a doubt.
The automated customer service systems you rely on, the complex logistics networks that deliver your packages, the back-end financial security protecting your bank accounts, every single one of them is rapidly transitioning from human-led applications to these vast networks of interconnected AI agents talking to each other at the speed of light.
Yeah, every time you interact with a major corporation from here on out, you will be interfacing with a VibeFlow 4 style architecture. The speed and efficiency of your life will dramatically increase because of these multi-agent systems.
Which leaves us with a critical and perhaps slightly unsettling final thought to ponder. If this new agentic era relies so heavily on front desk systems, these APIs designed purely for AI agents to seamlessly negotiate and execute tasks with other AI agents in a language optimized just for machines, what happens to transparency?
Yeah, the sheer speed of execution outpaces human observation entirely.
Exactly. Think about the implications of that. In a few years, when an automated enterprise system suddenly denies your mortgage application or flags your medical profile or completely reroutes a critical shipment, will we even be able to trace the conversation between the bots to find out why?
That's the million-dollar question.
When the entire workflow is a flawless, high-speed bot-to-bot interaction hidden behind a front desk, how do we look inside the automated assembly line to see where the custom sports car went wrong?
It is a profound paradox. I mean, we are building the most capable, high-resolution operational systems in human history, but the diagnostic windows we use to look inside them are getting smaller and much more opaque.
We're basically replacing the human learning curve with a machine logic curve that we might not even be able to read. Something to keep in mind the next time you hit submit on an application and wonder who or what is reviewing it on the other side. That's our deep dive for today. Keep questioning the systems around you, and we'll catch you next time.